Elena Martinez stood before the Galactic Council, maintaining what she privately called her diplomatic resting face, while 17 different species of alien argued about humanity's fate. The grand chamber of the Zaxxarith Confederation stretched above her in gleaming spires of crystal and light, designed to inspire awe in lesser species. She had to admit it was working, though not quite in the way they intended. The humans must be relocated for their own safety. The Vezikari representative waved all 4 of their arms in what Elena had learned was a gesture of charitable concern. Their homeworld is simply too dangerous for a civilized species to inhabit. Elena bit back a laugh. 6 months of diplomatic training hadn't prepared her for this level of patronizing nonsense. "I appreciate the Council's concern," she said, choosing her words carefully while mentally rolling her eyes. "But humanity has lived on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years. We've adapted quite well to our environment." The Vezikari's chromatophores flickered in distress. "But the gravity alone! 9.8 meters per second squared, the atmospheric pressure, the temperature swings, the indigenous microorganisms." "The bacteria are actually quite helpful," Elena began, but was cut off by the Zaxxarith High Commissioner, whose crystalline form sparkled with what she recognized as agitation. "Ambassador Martinez," the Commissioner's translation matrix conveyed their words with an air of infinite patience that made Elena want to scream. "Perhaps you don't fully understand. Your species has been living on what our classification system designates as a Class 12 Deathworld." The chamber erupted in concerned murmuring. Elena watched as several of the more delicate species' environmental suits engaged emergency meditation protocols. "When we first detected your radio signals," the Commissioner continued, "we assumed there must be some mistake in our readings. No sentient species could evolve in such conditions. The fact that your people have survived at all is remarkable." Elena thought about the history of human civilization, about climbing Mount Everest because it's there, about people who kept venomous snakes as pets, about extreme sports enthusiasts who jumped out of perfectly good aircraft for fun. She thought about telling them all this, then decided it might not help her case. "We've prepared a suitable world for human habitation," announced the Vezikari representative, practically glowing with self-satisfaction. "Paradise 7 is a perfect Class 3 garden world. Mild gravity, stable climate, no dangerous predators or pathogens. Your entire species can be safely relocated within the standard solar cycle." Relocated? Elena's diplomatic mask slipped for a moment. "You mean evacuated? All 8 billion of us?" "For your own good, of course," the Commissioner added smoothly. "The Confederation cannot in good conscience allow sentients to remain in such hazardous conditions. Think of the children." Elena thought of her nephew back on Earth, who had just started taking parkour classes and was already giving her sister grey hairs. She thought about trying to explain to him that their new home would be perfectly safe and boring. "The motion has already passed," the Commissioner announced, their crystalline form now glowing with what Elena recognized as bureaucratic satisfaction. "The relocation fleet will arrive at Earth within 1 standard rotation. We've taken the liberty of preparing all the necessary documentation." As Elena watched the council chamber erupt in self-congratulatory chittering, she couldn't help but wonder if they had any idea what they were actually doing. Humanity had survived and thrived on a world that apparently terrified the rest of the galaxy, and now they wanted to give humans their own planet? She thought about the history classes she'd taken, about how often isolating and underestimating humans had worked out for those who tried it. A small smile crept across her face as she bowed to accept the Council's decision. "On behalf of humanity," she said, her voice dripping with just enough sincerity to pass diplomatic muster, "we thank you for your generous concern for our welfare." As she straightened up, she caught the eye of her assistant in the gallery and gave a tiny nod. They had a lot of calls to make. Humanity was about to get a whole new world to play with, and she had a feeling the Confederation had no idea what they were about to unleash. The Commissioner's final words would later prove to be hilariously prophetic. "Trust us, Ambassador Martinez. This is for the best. What could possibly go wrong?" Commander James Chen stood at the viewport of colony ship Exodus 117, watching Paradise 7 grow larger in the distance. After 6 months of space travel with 8 million complaining passengers, he was ready to set foot on any planet, even one chosen by well-meaning but clueless aliens. Quite the view, isn't it? Elena Martinez appeared beside him, looking considerably more amused than someone overseeing a forced planetary evacuation should be. The Confederation's gift to humanity, complete with a bow on top. James squinted at the swirling purple-tinged atmosphere. That's not actually a bow, is it? No, just the polar aurora, though I wouldn't put it past them to try and gift-wrap a planet. She handed him a datapad. Latest atmospheric readings from the advanced probe. Let's see what Paradise looks like. He scrolled through the data, his eyebrows climbing higher with each swipe. These readings can't be right. The atmospheric pressure at sea level is triple Earth standard, yes. The Confederation's environmental engineers assured me they've prepared several lovely pressurized biodomes for us. Elena's smile had a predatory edge. They're rated for up to 4 times Earth pressure, should be perfectly safe. And the gravity? Only 1.3 times Earth normal. They were very proud of finding us such a light world. James ran a hand through his military short hair. Did anyone tell them that's not how gravity works? That higher gravity means denser atmosphere, stronger storms, more tectonic activity? I tried. They insisted their mathematical models proved this was a perfect garden world. Elena's voice dripped with artificial sweetness. The Vezakari representative suggested I take a basic physics course. The ship's intercom crackled. Attention all colonists. We are approaching Paradise 7's outer atmosphere. Please proceed to your designated landing shuttles. Remember, the Confederation has thoughtfully provided environmental suits for your protection during the initial surface survey. Environmental suits? James checked the readings again. In this gravity and pressure, those tin cans they gave us will crumple like beer cans at a frat party. Elena nodded cheerfully. I know. That's why I had our engineers modify them. The Confederation was very concerned about our primitive technological capabilities, so they didn't bother checking our improvements. The first shuttle descended through the lavender clouds, carrying the advanced survey team. James watched the feed from their exterior cameras with professional interest. The garden world below was a riot of colors that would give an Earth botanist nightmares. Forests of metallic-looking vegetation that swayed in winds strong enough to knock over their supposedly top-of-the-line alien survey vehicles. Is that tree eating their rover? Technically, it's not a tree. Eleanor consulted her datapad. The Confederation's xenobotanists classify it as a sessile photosynthetic colonizer. And yes, it's dissolving the rover's outer shell with some kind of acid. Fascinating, isn't it? The survey team's chatter filled the command center, notably lacking in panic as they documented the carnivorous megaflora. Someone had already started taking samples and arguing about potential industrial applications for the acid. Commander Chen! A young colonist burst onto the bridge, waving a tablet. You need to see this. We've got readings of massive life forms moving under the surface near landing zone Beta. How massive? James asked, already knowing he wasn't going to like the answer. About the size of a blue whale, sir, and they're burrowing through solid rock like it's butter. Eleanor cleared her throat delicately. Ah, yes, the harmless soil aerators mentioned in the planetary survey. The Confederation assured me they're strictly herbivorous, though they did seem a bit confused about how we define herbivorous after I showed them footage of hippos. James watched as another survey vehicle was casually flipped over by what looked like a cross between an earthworm and a tunnel boring machine. The survey team's response was a string of excited scientific observations, punctuated by suggestions for taming the creatures. At least the air's breathable, he offered. Oh, it gets better. Eleanor's grin widened. The atmosphere has twice the oxygen content of Earth. The Confederation thinks we'll all get altitude sickness. What they don't realize is... Everything's going to grow bigger, James finished, watching as a dragonfly the size of a small dog zipped past one of the cameras. Much bigger. The intercom crackled again, this time with a message from the Confederation's observation ship. Human friends, we notice your survey teams are experiencing some equipment difficulties. Please remain in your protective habitats while we reassess the local fauna's friendship potential. James watched as the survey team ignored this completely, already setting up base camp and taking bets on who could get the best samples of the acid-spitting trees. Someone had started a pool on how long it would take to domesticate the tunnel monsters. "Should we tell them?" he asked Elena. She shook her head, still smiling. "Let them figure it out. Though I did send a message to Earth suggesting we rename the planet. I'm thinking New Australia has a nice ring to it." Below them, humanity's first colony on Paradise 7 was taking shape, looking remarkably unfazed by their supposedly deadly new home. The Confederation observation team watched in horror as children ran laughing through the high-gravity environment, already playing games with the local equivalent of tumbleweeds, which happened to be mobile carnivorous plant colonies. "Welcome to Paradise," James muttered, making a note to requisition more industrial-grade steel for the colony's infrastructure. "Hope the galaxy's ready for what comes next." Eleanor's reply was interrupted by an excited shout from the survey team. "Commander, we found something better than diamonds in these caves, and it's already refined." James and Elena shared a look. Humanity had been given a new world, and they were already figuring out how to turn it into a superpower's home base. The galaxy wouldn't know what hit it. "Should we tell the Confederation about the mineral deposits?" James asked. Elena's diplomatic smile was back. "Let's call it a surprise thank you gift, for all their generous concern." Above them, the Confederation observation ship's sensors recorded everything, its AI struggling to comprehend how these soft, fragile beings were treating a Deathworld like a playground. The report it compiled would cause several council members to require medical attention. Paradise 7 wasn't just surviving humanity's arrival, it was about to become the galaxy's most improbable success story. 6 months into the colonization of Paradise 7, now officially renamed New Australia, despite diplomatic protests, Maya Wong was having the time of her life explaining to the first alien observation team why they shouldn't panic. "So you see," she said, calmly sipping coffee while something the size of a small dinosaur prowled past the window, "we've actually found the local apex predators quite reasonable once you establish proper boundaries." The Vezikari observer's environmental suit was cycling through emergency meditation protocols faster than a disco light show. You've established boundaries with the extinction-class megafauna." "Oh, yes." Maya checked her tablet. "That one's Betty. She's quite friendly as long as you give her the occasional mineral supplement. Turns out they're partially lithivorous. Explains why they can tunnel through solid rock. We've domesticated about 30 of them for mining operations." "You named it Betty?" "Well, technically, Dr. Martinez's 6-year-old daughter named it Betty. She has tea parties with it every Tuesday. The creature seems to enjoy the attention, though we had to design specialized titanium teacups." The observation team's report was beginning to look like a horror novel. The Zaxarith representative raised a crystalline appendage. "But our preliminary surveys indicated no sapient life forms capable of—" They were interrupted by Betty letting out a sound somewhere between a whale song and a rock crusher, then delicately accepting a treat from a passing child. "About those surveys," Maya continued cheerfully, "we've had to make some minor adjustments to your classification system. Turns out, Paradise 7 isn't actually a Class 3 garden world." "Of course it is. We specifically engineered it to be perfect for—" "It's a Class 15 death world." Maya pulled up a holographic chart. "The gravity alone puts it in Class 10 territory. Then there's the atmospheric pressure, the hyper-oxygenated environment, the silicon-based apex predators, the metallovorous flora." She gestured at a nearby tree that was contentedly dissolving a broken mining drone. "We're actually thinking of submitting a paper to the Galactic Scientific Council about updating their planetary classification metrics." The observation team huddled together as a flock of what looked like pterodactyls made of living crystal soared overhead. A group of human teenagers waved at them from the backs of their own trained specimens. But how are you surviving?" The Vezikari's translator was starting to glitch from stress. "Oh, that's the interesting part." Maya led them toward the colony's main dome, now reinforced with locally sourced materials that made it look more like a fortress than a habitat. We've had to get creative with our engineering solutions. Did you know the acid from those trees you warned us about makes an excellent industrial solvent? We're already synthesizing it for manufacturing. She paused to wave at a massive shape moving through the purple mist. Morning, Carlos. The silicon-based predator rumbled a greeting that made the observation team's instruments spike in alarm. You named another one? Carlos helps with the heavy lifting in Construction Zone C. He's quite good at architectural support, actually. The crystal lattice structure of his exoskeleton is remarkably similar to reinforced concrete. They entered the main colony hub, where humans went about their daily business as if living on a Deathworld was perfectly normal. Children played in the 1.3G environment as if it was a bounce house. Scientists argued over specimen samples, while mechanics modified alien tech with cheerful disregard for the "do not tamper" warnings. Is that infant manipulating a Class 7 restricted technology? The Zaxarith representative's crystalline form was vibrating with anxiety. Oh, the baby quantum calculator. Little Susie figured out how to make it project cartoon characters. We're still not sure how she bypassed the security protocols, but the engineering team is studying her methodology. Maya led them to her office, carefully not mentioning that it had originally been designated as a high-security vault. The reinforced walls made excellent sound dampening for diplomatic meetings. Now, about your concerns regarding our industrial development. She pulled up another hologram showing the colony's expansion plans. The observation team's universal translators simultaneously glitched at the scale of human ambition on display. These modifications to our original equipment. The Vezkari scrolled through the data with trembling appendages. They're not simply improvements. You're completely redesigning our technology. Well, we had to. Maya shrugged. Your environmental suits couldn't handle the pressure. Your vehicles kept getting eaten by the local wildlife, and your quantum computers weren't compatible with our video games. The children were very insistent about that last part. A distant explosion rocked the building. Maya checked her tablet and nodded. Ah, good. The mining team's made it to the platinum deposits. Betty's been quite helpful with that project. The mining team? But we detected no valuable minerals in this sector. You weren't looking deep enough, or rather you couldn't. The local geology requires special handling. She smiled. Betty and her friends are excellent at getting through the diamond-hard outer layers. We're thinking of calling it extreme mining. It's becoming quite popular among the younger colonists. The observation team watched in horror through the window as a group of humans rode past on what appeared to be domesticated versions of the most dangerous predators on the planet, whooping with joy as they headed toward the mines. Perhaps, the Zaxarith representative said carefully, we should discuss implementing some safety protocols. Maya's diplomatic smile could have cut diamonds. Oh, we have safety protocols. Would you like to see our accident statistics compared to the galactic standard? She pulled up another chart. The observers stared in disbelief. But these numbers, they're impossible. No one has a safety record this good on a Class 5 world, let alone a... Class 15, Maya reminded them cheerfully. And yes, turns out when you grow up on a Deathworld, you develop really good survival instincts. Who knew? As if to punctuate her point, the building shook again as Betty's family group started their afternoon mining shift, their crystalline hides glittering in the purple sunlight, while human workers rode them like they were oversized puppies. Now, Maya said, pulling out a stack of trade agreements, shall we discuss mineral export rights? We have some fascinating proposals about introducing the galaxy to new Australian industrial techniques. The observation team's final report to the Galactic Council would later be classified as a psychological hazard. The accompanying footage of human children having a tea party with silicon-based megafauna would become a viral sensation across the galaxy, though most species viewed it as a horror film. Humanity, meanwhile, was just getting started. 3 years after the humanitarian relocation of humanity, the Zaxarith Trade Commission was having what humans would call a collective meltdown. What do you mean they're selling survival gear? The commission head's crystalline form was flickering in distress patterns. To whom? The junior analyst's environmental suit was working overtime to handle their anxiety. To everyone, Commissioner. Their new Australian extreme equipment brand has become the highest-rated survival gear in 17 sectors. On the main display, footage showed various alien species cautiously testing human-designed environmental suits. The suits were decorated with cartoon versions of Betty and Carlos, now apparently serving as corporate mascots. But their technology was primitive. We gave them basic survival equipment. Yes, well. The analyst pulled up another chart. They've made some modifications. Modifications was an understatement. The human-modified suits could withstand pressures that made the original designs look like wet paper bags. They'd somehow incorporated the acid-resistant properties of local flora and the crystal lattice structure of the silicon-based fauna into the materials. And this is legal? They filed all the proper patents. The analyst's voice was strained. Their paperwork was perfect. Apparently they have an entire division dedicated to navigating our bureaucracy. They call it malicious compliance operations. The commission head's crystalline structure made a sound like breaking glass. What else are they selling? Everything. A new series of holograms appeared. Mining equipment designed for extreme environments. Construction materials that self-repair using principles learned from local wildlife. Entertainment packages featuring what they call extreme tourism experiences. Tourism on a Class 15 Deathworld. They're calling it the ultimate adventure holiday. There's a 3-year waiting list. The analyst pulled up footage of various alien thrill-seekers riding domesticated crystal fauna while humans acted as guides. They've had to turn down 90% of applications for safety reasons. Safety reasons? Since when do humans care about safety? Oh, that's the interesting part. The analyst seemed almost admiring. They've developed the most comprehensive safety protocols in the galaxy. Turns out living on Deathworlds makes you very good at not dying. The display shifted to show human trade vessels, massive things that looked like they'd been designed by someone who thought standard spaceship designs were too boring. They were painted in eye-searing colors that humans called safety patterns. Are those modified crystal beasts attached to their ships? Yes, sir. Apparently Betty had relatives in space. The humans call them space whales. They've domesticated them for deep space mining and navigation. The creatures can detect spatial anomalies that our best sensors miss. And they're selling this technology. No, sir. They're selling the training programs to interface with the creatures at extremely high prices, with extensive safety certifications required. The analyst's suit was now running entertainment protocols to prevent panic. They've effectively created a monopoly on deep space extreme environment operations. The commission head reviewed the trade figures, then reviewed them again, then engaged their own suit's calming protocols. These profit margins are completely legal. The analyst sounded resigned. They found 16 different subsections in our trade laws about unique environmental expertise and specialized survival knowledge. Their lawyers are terrifyingly efficient. A new alert flashed across the display. The analyst's suit began playing soothing music. What now? They've just announced their first interstellar exploration college. New Australia University of Extreme Environment Studies. Full scholarship programs for all Confederation species. The waiting list is already longer than their tourism program. The commission head's form flickered in patterns that suggested an incoming migraine. Please tell me they're at least containing themselves to their own planet. About that, the analyst brought up a galaxy map. Red dots began appearing. These are human-established extreme environment training centers. These are their trading posts. These are their mining operations, and these... A wave of purple dots spread across the map. Are worlds they've marked for potential colonization. All death worlds. Class 10 and above. They're calling it the Challenging Real Estate Initiative. Their marketing department is creative. The display showed human advertisements featuring scenic views of volcanic worlds, gas giant mining operations, and deep space crystal beast rodeos, all with the tagline, "If you can't handle it, we'll teach you how." And the worst part? The analyst's suit was now diffusing anti-anxiety aromatherapy. They're sending us thank you notes. Every trade agreement, every patent filing, every expansion proposal comes with a formal letter of gratitude for the opportunity to realize humanity's full potential. The commission head stared at the latest trade figures, the expansion maps, and the footage of humans casually doing impossible things while teaching other species to do the same. We didn't exile them to a death world, they finally said. We gave them a training ground. Yes, sir. Their diplomatic corps sent us a lovely gift basket last week. It included a training manual titled Surviving Success, a guide to thriving in any environment. As if to punctuate the point, a massive space crystal whale cruised past the Trade Commission's window, its crystalline hide painted in safety colors, carrying what appeared to be a human family out for a casual afternoon flight. The creature sang a greeting that cracked 3 windows and dented the commissioner's crystalline form. "Sorry about that," called a cheerful human voice over the emergency channel. "Betty Jr. is still learning volume control. Don't worry, our repair crews will fix those windows with our new crystal matrix technology. Would you like a brochure?" The commission head looked at the galaxy map again, watching the steady spread of human influence across what were supposed to be uninhabitable worlds. "Send a message to the Council," they said finally. Tell them humanity says thank you." The analyst's suit finally gave up and initiated a full reset. Somewhere in the distance, a space whale sang what sounded suspiciously like a human victory song. 10 years to the day after humanity's humanitarian relocation, Elena Martinez stood before the Galactic Council again. This time, she didn't bother hiding her smile. The council chamber hadn't changed much, still all crystal spires and impressive lighting. What had changed was the way the council members looked at her, less like a primitive to be protected, and more like someone had invited a black hole to a tea party. Ambassador Martinez, the Zaxarith High Commissioner's translation matrix couldn't quite hide their nervousness. "We've received your petition for humanity's new status in the Confederation." "Yes," Eleanor said brightly. "We're applying for recognition as a Class 15 civilization." The chamber erupted in chaos. Several species' environmental suits began emergency shutdown procedures. "There's no such thing as a Class 15 civilization." The Vezakari representatives' chromatophores were having a seizure. "The scale only goes to 10. "About that." Elena pulled up a hologram, courtesy of New Australian technology. "We've taken the liberty of updating the classification system. You'll find our research quite thorough. We've had a lot of practice with your bureaucracy." The display showed humanity's expanding influence, 4 more Deathworld colonies, each more impossible than the last. Trading posts in environments that made New Australia look like a resort. Mining operations in gas giants. Deep space stations that doubled as extreme environment training centers. "Is that a vacation resort inside a volcanic caldera?" someone asked weakly. "The Hot Springs Extreme Spa," Elena confirmed. "There's a 3-year waiting list, though we do offer priority booking for council members." She paused. "For diplomatic purposes, of course." The High Commissioner's crystalline form was developing stress fractures. "When we relocated your species, the intention was to protect us from the dangers of our environment." Elena's smile could have cut diamonds. "Yes, we got your memo, all 50,000 pages of safety regulations. We've framed them. They're hanging in the New Australia Museum of Unintended Consequences." She brought up another display, this one showing hundreds of alien species learning human survival techniques. "We've found that the galaxy was full of beings who wanted to explore dangerous worlds but never had the right teachers. We're happy to fill that educational niche." "Education?" The Vezakari sounded faint. "You're teaching other species to thrive in extreme environments?" "Yes," Eleanor nodded. "Our latest program, Embracing Your Inner Deathworlder, has been particularly successful. The graduation ceremony involves having tea with Betty." "Betty is still—" "Oh yes, she's a great-grandmother now. The crystal fauna breeding program has been remarkably successful. Would you like to see the family photos?" Several council members quickly declined. "But at least you're containing these activities to approved zones." The High Commissioner sounded hopeful. Elena's grin widened. About that, remember those trade routes you said were too dangerous to use? The ones through radiation belts and asteroid fields? The hologram shifted to show human ships, escorted by domesticated space whales, casually navigating paths that the Confederation had marked as certain death. We've opened them up, reduced shipping times across 17 sectors by an average of 60%. Our pilots run training programs for other species' crews. The waiting list for those is even longer than the Volcano Resort. And the mineral rights, all properly filed, stamped and approved. Elena's voice dripped with helpful cheer. Your bureaucracy is very thorough. We made sure to dot every I and cross every T, all 10,000 of them, in triplicate. She pulled up one final display, humanity's contribution to the Confederation's economy over the past decade. The numbers made several council members require medical attention. So you see, Eleanor concluded, we're not asking for Class 15 recognition. We're informing you of it, though we are happy to provide the Council with complimentary access to our Surviving Success training program. The first session includes a lovely tea party with Betty Jr., RT's newest clutch. The High Commissioner stared at the display, at the numbers that shouldn't be possible, at the footage of humans casually reshaping the galaxy's understanding of impossible. When we sent you to that world, you gave humanity exactly what it needed. Elena's diplomatic mask finally cracked into a genuine grin. A challenge, room to grow, and most importantly, no one watching over our shoulder telling us to be careful. She straightened her ambassador's uniform, made from local new Australian materials, capable of withstanding everything from acid rain to plasma bursts. On behalf of humanity, I'd like to formally thank the Council for their generous gift of exile. We couldn't have built an interstellar superpower without you. As Elena walked out of the Council chamber, her tablet pinged with a message from Maya. Betty's newest clutch just hatched. The daycare kids have already named them. How do you feel about a diplomatic corps of riding crystal beasts? Behind her, she could hear the Council beginning emergency sessions about the human situation. She made a mental note to send them another gift basket, maybe this time with a therapy voucher for the Hot Springs Resort. After all, humanity had learned an important lesson over the past 10 years. The best revenge wasn't just surviving. It was thriving so well that your enemies had to come to you for lessons. And humanity, as it turned out, was a very, very good teacher.